All right. Good morning, everybody. Today, our two blot is from Shabbos is Chaf Aleph. Today is Chaf Beis. So we left off. Actually, we finished the sugya of the Tuma Tahara sugya, and then we were discussing the sugya actually from the Mishnah about destroying truma, which is tahira before its time. Are you allowed to go ahead and mix it together? So we left off at the bottom of Chaf and Beis. 4 lines from the bottom. 4 lines from the bottom. So those of you just asked, where do we leave off? So we left off, it's also just at the end of the parak, so we got to finish a little more. So we said, Takala Atzma tonight, and the fact itself, we're talking about takala, right? Something bad could happen because if you leave something over, right, some sort of, travesty or something could happen. Let's say you leave over, you're trying to age truma temeya, which you're not allowed to consume, and if you leave it over for it to age and then be able to use it in a non-eating way, perhaps one might come to go ahead and drink it or consume it, and therefore forget it. So that's called a takala. So the Gemara answers this, or Gemara says takala atzma tonight. It's actually a machlokes tonight. Did Tanya we learn in a brayso chavis shel yain shel truma shnit meis. If you have a barrel of wine of truma that became tamei, beis shammai amim tishavech chavel ubeis hillel imrim tasa ziluf. So Beis Shammai says you got to destroy it right away. You can't use it. You can't save it at all. You can't leave it around. And Beis Hillel says, you can use it for ziluf. You can use it for sprinkling, right? For aroma. Now, if you leave it for aroma, obviously you're not going to use it all at the same time. You're going to leave it around. So the concern is if I leave it around, I might go ahead and drink it, which is forbidden because it's truma tmeya. And Omar, Rabbi Yishmael, Rabbi Yossi, Ani Achriya b'sadeh. So I see. Let me be the deciding factor between the machlokes between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai, right? So I'll be machriya. Besada, if you're out in the field and tishavich, then you go ahead and you pour it out. Then, however, chavav is tasa ziluf. But if it's in the house,
I'm sorry. You said chaf amid beis or chaf beis amid beis?
No, chaf amid beis.
Chaf amid beis. Okay, Yeshkach. Thanks.
Right, the bottom over here.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we said over there, if it's in the field, go ahead and because you don't go ahead and use aroma, out in the field, so therefore pour it all out. But if it's in the house, then you go ahead and keep it around. So however, in Ikadami, some say b'chodesh tishavei, and some says no, there wasn't that. What was the machriya? He said b'chodesh new wine, then pour it out immediately. But if it was older wine, which you don't have to store and age until you can go ahead and use it for aroma, then tasa ziluf, then you can use it immediately for ziluf. So, however, Rabbi Yossi said, okay, I'll be the machriya between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai. So, however, the Amrullah, they said to him, turn the page. Ein hachras shlishis machrias, right? You don't have the third opinion. Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai didn't get into the reasonings of why. So you wanted to go ahead and give your own svara, whether it's because you wouldn't want to store it or because it wasn't for immediate use out in the field versus the house. But you did your own reason. You didn't agree with one of them. So now, since you didn't agree and say, okay, I hold like this one or this one, but you had your own svara, it's not considered like basically two people arguing and third person taking the side. Now it's 2 versus 1. Rather, it's considered to be like 3 separate opinions. And Rabbi Yossi, speaking of this case, Rabbi Chanina, machlekes shenafla lefachos mimeya sa kulin meyin. So we discussed this case last week at the end of the week regarding you had some truma that it broke. It was going to go ahead and flow into chulin, which was tameh. So the truma, as was going to come in, and when it would join with the chulin meyin, the truma itself would become tameh. So the question was, can you go ahead and save something from coming in? If by saving it, you're going to go ahead and be metame the truma biadayim, right, actively, as opposed to letting it flow in. You didn't do anything, but it, protect it. So the machlokes over there, whether you save is when if it went into something which is smaller than 100 to 1. Right? But if it was more than 100 to 1, because then once it's 100 to 1, you could say it's batal, right? Everyone says let it flow in because then it's batal, right? Then it's not considered to be, you just have the amount of truma that fell in, but it's not considered to be, we don't ruin all the chulin because it's now the truma is batal to the chulin tameya, and therefore better to let it flow down and don't let it flow in. And Tanya Mihachi similarly learned. If you have a barrel of wine on the top of in the vat, and underneath was at least 100 of chulin tamein. If you can go ahead and save some of it, right? Go ahead and save it. But if not, let it go down. And don't let it go ahead and be tamei yad. Don't do it. The Gemara just asks, "Hi, moide Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Shua." It should be moide Rabbi Shua Rabbi Eliezer miboile, right? You're saying that even in this case, he says, "Oh, now you should not save it." Well, he wasn't the one. It shouldn't be Rabbi Eliezer was the one who's now agreeing with Rabbi Shua. It should be Rabbi Shua agreeing with Rabbi Eliezer. So I'm a Rav Epoch. Yes, switch around the shitas. It should have said, right? Even in this case, right? It should have said moide Rabbi Shua Rabbi Eliezer. And Rav Huna, Rav Yeshua Amar, last case. So Rav Huna, Rav Yeshua says, "No, don't switch around." It is Rabbi Eliezer agreeing with Rav Yeshua. And why is he a moed in this case? What's he? The kli sheteicho tahor v'gabo tamei. Over here, we're talking about a case of where the kli is talking about a case where it's tahor on the inside and the outside is tamei. So maybe you say over there that maybe it shouldn't be saved, right? Because maybe it'll touch on the outside and be matami the truma. So Kamash Malon, we're now choshev for that if you can go ahead and save it on the inside, that is the case where Rabbi Eliezer is moed to Rabbi Yeshua in this case, and therefore you don't have to go ahead and switch around the shitas. So Hadran Lach or Li Basar. So now we finished the first parak of Sachem. Right, we finished a very difficult sugya. Now it gets hopefully we'll get a little more geschmack. Well, so now we are on Chaf Aleph, Amud Aleph. We're starting the new parak. Those of you who just came in, I can't really see. Fine. So Kol Shah Shemuter, we saw that actually earlier. So we say over there, Kol Shah Shemuter Lechol Machil Behema. So let me start again. Kol Shah Shemuter Lechol. Anytime that's mutter to go ahead and eat. Machil Behema Lechaya Leoifos. One can go ahead and feed it to his animals, right? His behema, his domesticated animal, or wild animals, or birds. And he can sell it to a guy, right? As long as he can eat it, he can do all these things. And he's mutter to go ahead and get hana. However, others manu, once the time has passed for its mutter to le'achol, to eat, aser ba'anasa, it's aser for him to go ahead and get hana. Yasik but tanur the kirai and should not go ahead and use it basically to fire up his stove with it to heat his stuff. He can't use the chametz for that. And Rabbi Huda Eimer ein bir chametz el sreifa. Rabbi Huda says the only way to perform bir chametz is through sreifa. You go ahead and break it up and crumble it into small little tiny pieces and throw it in the air or throw it in the sea. That is also a way of bir chametz, not just like Rabbi Huda, who says you have to do it with fire. Fine. All right. That was the Mishnah. Now let's see the Gemara. So it says there, Kol Shah Shemuter Lechol. So it says anytime it's muter lechol. So machil, then he can go ahead and feed others. Ha Kol Shah she'ena muter lechol, ena machil. Sounds like anytime it's and anytime it's not mutter to feed, ena machil. So leimas nisan to like Rabbi Huda. Let's say our Mishnah is not like Rabbi Huda, which you saw actually there's machlokas in the first parak. What was the machlokas there? Di Rabbi Huda ha'ika chamesh de'ena eichel machil. Right? If it's Rabbi Huda, then during the 5th hour, right? So it's a time where you can't eat, but according to Rabbi Huda, right, you're allowed to go ahead and feed others. But we said, no, our Mishnah seems to say, Kol Shah Shemuter Lechol, only when you can eat, right? Then you can go ahead and use it, right? You know, when I say use, it means getting benefit by feeding animals or selling it to a guy. But if you can't eat it, then it sounds like you can't go ahead and feed anything. So let's look at our Mishnah. The Tanah we learned in the Mishnah over there, which was on Daf Daled Amud Beis. It says, Kol chamesh v'sarfim b'tchilas sheish. Rameir says you can go ahead and eat, right, the entire fifth, and then you go ahead and burn in the sixth. And Rabbi Huda Imer, Eichlin kol arba, no, only up until the fourth you can eat. The toilin kol chamesh, and the fifth you do nothing, right? The servant b'chilas sheish, and then you can go ahead and burn during the sixth. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, right, during the fifth, you're still allowed to get hana. You just can't eat, right? But according to what our Mishnah says, eating is synonymous with getting hana. If you can't eat anymore, right, then you're not allowed to get hana. So during the fifth hour, you can't eat, right? So Rabbi Yehuda, right, would say that you can't get hana either, right? According to our Mishnah. So therefore, our Mishnah maybe is not like Rabbi Yehuda, right? So the Elamai, so the Gemara says, okay, so who is it like, right? So Elamai, so he says Rabbi Meir. Is it Rabbi Meir, right? Who, and remember, Rabbi Meir says that you eat through 5, and you can, obviously get hana through 5, and during 6 you burn it. So it says, so my Rabbi Meir, hi kol shash muter lechol meichel, right? Kol shash eichel meichel miboile, right? It says over there, anytime that one is able to eat, he can go ahead and feed others and get hana. But why didn't it say kol sha'oichel? Talking about that same person. Anytime he's able to eat, he can go ahead and use it for others, right? Look at the lashon of the Mishnah. It doesn't say kol sha'oichel. It says kol shemuter le'echel, right? So what's with the funny lashon? So we actually saw this earlier. So Amar Rabba Bar Ula Masnis Rabbi Gamliel. It must be the shita of Rabbi Gamliel, right? Because it seems like not even referring to you is referring to even other people. And what's that Mishnah? The Tanai we learned in the Mishnah, Rabbi Gamliel, Chulin Nechlin Kol Arba. He agrees with what we said earlier that the first 4 hours you can go ahead and eat. And Truma Kol Chamesh. During the 5th hour, Kohanim can eat Truma Tahira. So, right? And the servant Sheish, and then you burn during the 6th hour. So what do you see over here? So there's a time when some people can eat. So even though you yourself, I'm not a Kohen, I can't go ahead and eat Truma during the 5th hour, but others can eat. So maybe it means since during a time when others can eat, right? I.e. during the 5th hour, I can still go ahead and get hana. So it sounds like it's Rabbi Gamliel, Kol shashemot Kohen b'truma. Anytime, as long as a Kohen is able to go ahead and eat Truma, then Yisrael machil chulun lebehema l'chayil oifos. Then Yisrael is able to go ahead and feed, animals or sell to a guy or get hana from it. Fine. So that was the case so that was the understanding of our Mishnah. Fine. Now, lamali lemisna behema, lamali lemisna chaya. Why do you have to go ahead and, so it says over there, why do you have to go ahead and list behema and say chaya? Why do you say different types of animals? So tzricha, ditana behema. If it just said you can go ahead and give a domesticated animal, diboy mishayra chazila. Because if he doesn't eat all, the animal doesn't eat all of it. When you give it to him, then what's going to get? You'll be able to see it. Chaya, right? But a wild animal, but a wild animal, normally if that leaves some of the food over the chametz over, will hide it. You won't be able to see it. Emelo. Maybe you won't be able to go ahead and find it and destroy it, and therefore it wouldn't work. And if we just said you're allowed to go ahead and feed the chametz right during this man to a wild animal, because then if it leaves some over, you won't be able to see it, and you won't be able to buy your matzeh. But an animal, but maybe a domesticated animal, it might leave it over, and therefore he'll see it and he won't destroy it, and perhaps he'll be over by your matzeh. So therefore it's tzrika. Therefore you have to they have to list that case. And also ophos, the reason why it said birds, lamali. So I did tan behem v'chaya tan nami ophos. Since it's already listed, they can go ahead and give chametz right during this man will still mutter to a chaya or to an oaf. Therefore it also listed birds as they're included. Fine. So we have 4 lines from the bottom on chaf aleph and aleph, 2 dots. Then it says during the time when someone can eat, as we explained according to Ram Gamliel, right up until through the 5th hour, you can go ahead and give it to feed your animals, or feed it to an animal, or sell it to a guy. So Gemara says pshita, it's obvious. So Gemara says no, liafuke mahai tana, no, to exclude this tana. Ditani, but in a brayso, beishami yamim lo yimkor adam chemsa. Person should not go ahead and sell his guy. Now, we're not talking about our sales that nowadays we sell to a guy, which is sort of a way to get around destroying all of your chametz, right? This was talking about basically selling to him, and this is their chametz, right? I'm literally selling it, right? I'm selling all my chametz, right? So now he's selling him his box of cereal, okay? So he can only, according to Beis Shammai, you can only sell it if you know that he will finish it before Pesach, right? That's when you're allowed to go ahead and do it. But if it's not going to be finished, then it doesn't work. As long as you can go ahead and eat it, then you're allowed to go ahead and sell it and turn the page. And really, we don't necessarily care as to whether they finish or not. Since I can sell it to him, it's his now, right? It's completely his. I don't, so therefore, if he eats it, if he doesn't eat it, it doesn't make a difference to me. And kusach. So this dip, right? It's like moldy dip, whatever they used to go ahead and use it. It would last for a long time, right? So, and there was bread in there. He holds like Beis Shammai that says that basically within 30 days you can't sell this kutach, right? Because it takes a long time to go ahead and finish the entire kutach when they make it, right? It lasts a long time. So therefore, since it's not going to go ahead and be finished before Pesach, therefore you have to go ahead and burn it. You can't just sell it to a nachri, a week before, because it will not be finished by that. Fine, 2 dots. Umuter bahano. It's mutter bahano. From the Mishnah, we said, right, you can sell to a guy, and then the last thing was mutter bahano, right? Bahanaso, right? So Gemara says, pshit, that's obvious. So right? No, we're even talking about a case of where he basically went ahead and he burnt it right before the time, right? In Kamash Malon, and therefore it comes to teach us. Since you went ahead and you burnt it, you singed it, right? So therefore, it's considered like it was destroyed. So therefore, it's considered like it was destroyed. Therefore, even though it wasn't completely destroyed, it's still considered to be right. He was out of mind, out of sight, and therefore, it's no longer considered to be chametz. And then we said, Avers Mana, Asr Bahana. So then once the time passes, now it's Asr Bahana. You can't get any sort of form of benefit from it. So Gemara says, Pshita, that's obvious. Gemara says, no, let's Shas Derabanan. No, to teach you even during the Shas Derabanan, right? During the hour before, not after 12, right? During the 6th hour between 11 and 12. Right? Shas Derabanan. Tamarav Gidam Rav Chia Bar Yisem Rabbi Yechon Hamakadesh B'Sheish Lamala. Afilo Bechite Korndisa. One who goes ahead is Makadesh, a woman. Now, when one marries a woman, he has to give her something which is at least worth a pruta, right? It has to be an exchange, right? She's giving him her ishus, so he has to give her something of value. So he gives her this chametz, even this korndisa, which is something that doesn't become chametz very easily, and he gives that to her in exchange during the 6th hour. Ein chayshin the kedushin. Nevertheless, this kedushin does not work at all because it's considered to be valueless. Even not only after 12 o'clock, at 12:01 during the 7th hour, but even during the Shas Derabanan, even during the 6th hour, also considered to be Asr Bahana, and therefore we're not chayshish for that kedushin. The Chazal say it doesn't work. And then we say the lo yasik by toner v'kirayim. Go ahead and you can't use it to go ahead and fuel your ovens, right? So the Gemara says pshito. So tzricha Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda Amar ein bir chametz el streifa. According to Rabbi Yehuda, who holds that bir chametz only to streifa. Salkatai sechamino ha'oil Amar Rabbi Yehuda mitzvah b'streifa b'hadi dikas sariflei lisani minei. Maybe according to him, that which you go ahead and burn it, maybe you can get hana. So kamash malon, that you can't get hana even while burning it. Fine, period. Now we start a big sugya. Now we start with this sugya will basically take us through the end of the day. Nice geschmack sugya, right? Not that difficult. So we say Omar Chizkiya. Speaking, so Chizkiya says we're gonna have 2 shitas. First one is gonna be Chizkiya. Menayin lechametz b'Pesach she'aser b'hana. All right. So first step, where do we know that the chametz and Pesach is aser b'hana? Right. So Shnamar lo yachel chametz. Right. It should not be eaten. Lo yeachel. Right. It doesn't say lo yochel. It says lo yeachel chametz. Lo yebo heter achila. There should not be any heter at all of consumption, right? Nothing that you don't use it for anything that might lead to someone eating it. So therefore, you shouldn't use it at all. So tamid the kasav rachmana lo yechel chametz. Ha lo kasav lo yechel. They didn't say lo yechel havamina isser achila mashma isser hana lo mashma. If it didn't say lo yachel, but it said lo yochel, right? Not don't eat, as opposed to it shouldn't be eaten, right? That's what we said, lo yachel, it shouldn't be eaten, versus don't eat, right? If it would have said don't eat, then that only tells you it's usher to eat, but it's mutter bahana. Okay, this is our foundation of what we're learning today. We have to remember this. According to Chizkiah, lo yachel teaches you it shouldn't be eaten anyway, even hana. But if it just says lo yochel, it would have meant to be that it's only usher to eat, but it's mutter bahana. So that is the opinion of Chizkiah. Upligi de Rabbi Avo. And argues with Rabbi Avo, kol makom shenamar lo yochel. Anytime it says don't eat, right? Not don't be eaten, lo yochel, lo seichel, or lo seichlu, right? Or it says don't eat, or any of these expressions of lo yochel, right? Certain in the different isurim, we'll go through the different isurim, right? By nevela and treifa and other things over there where it says lo yochel, lo seichlu, lo seichlu, lo seichel, lo seichlu. Echad is achila, ve'echad is hana. Right? In other words, then it always assumes, right? Once it says lo yechel, it assumes not only isser eating, but also isser hana, right? Unless it tells you for whatever reason that the hana is mutter, right? As like it did in the case of nevela. Okay, so now this is the second opinion, Rabbi Avo, right? So the Chizkiah says anytime it says lo yechel, it just means usher to eat, but it's mutter b'hana. And over here, Rabbi Avo seems to say anytime it says don't eat, right? It means don't eat and don't get hana unless the pasuk tells you that it's mutter, such as it does by nevela. The Tanya, as we learn in the Brayso, so let's see this example of nevela that says lo yisaychlu kol nevela lager asher b'sharecha titnena leba'achla o machar lenachri. It says, I sort of read it wrong, right? It says it reads like it. Do not eat nevela. Now, what is a nevela? Nevela is an animal that was not shechted properly. The animal was a kosher animal, but it died from non-shchita, right? Either it was they did a shchita, they messed up the meshchita or whatever it was, it died. That's the nevela. So you can't eat it. So the ger you should give it to the ger, right? Who's mutter nevela. Ger is a person who keeps shavmas with noach. Or go ahead and sell it to somebody who doesn't keep any of the mitzvahs, right? So either give it to a ger or sell it to a nachri, right? Nachri keeps nothing, ger keeps shemes b'noach. Now, I only know in the case of nevela to go ahead and give it to a ger b'nesina, right? The first five pasuk, and then or sell to a nachri. The ger b'mechira menayin. How do I know you can also go ahead and sell it? It said give it to the ger. So how do I know maybe I can even sell it to him? Therefore, it says over there, right? Since the word "oh," it means he can do either one. He can do not only go ahead and give it to him, he can even go ahead and sell it. And the nachri b'nesina menayin. How do we know you can also give it to the nachri who was mentioned at the end of the pasuk, not just sell it to him? So Tamaloymar. Therefore, since it's connected to the two, it says give it, when it's referring to the ger, or go ahead and sell to nachri. So echad ger v'echad beim mechir beim nesina di remeir. According to Remeir, right, you can go ahead and either give it or sell it, both to the nachri and or the ger. And that was the first shita. That was the shita of Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Huda Imer. Rabbi Huda says dvarim kikasa. No. The way it's written, that's what we have to stick to. In other words, leger b'nesina l'nachri b'mechina, right? Since the ger of him, you can only give it to, you can't sell it to. And it comes to nachri, you can't go ahead and give it to him, you can only sell it to him. In my time, the Rabbi Huda, what's the reason called Rabbi Huda? So kedamar Rabbi Meir. So if it's like Rabbi Meir, that's either or, it doesn't make a difference which way. So lichta rachmana, let the pasuk say like this: lagera shebi sherecha titnana v'achlo machar, right? Oh, lamali, right? Why does it say? Why it shouldn't have just said to the ger that's in your gate, you should give it to him, or eat it, or sell it, right? Why does it say oh lamali shmamina l'dvarim kikasam? Therefore, it says other word or to separate them, to say it's not all considered to be one, and therefore you have the ger is one case and the nachri is the other case. I Rabbi Meir Why does it say the word "oh" then? Right? So it says no, to give you preference to go ahead and you should go ahead and help support the ger who's keeping the Shem Mitzvah Noach. Therefore, giving him first for free takes precedence versus selling it to a nachri. Rabbi Huda, no, I don't need a possible that came in the ger so the nachri. So let's say since I'm commanded to go ahead and help support a ger, right, who's keeping the Shem as a bnei Noach versus a nachri who is not, therefore I don't need a pasuk to tell me preference to go ahead and give it to a ger before I sell it to a nachri. Fine. So that was the machlokas over there by nevela, right? But the point is, right, the pasuk said beferish that you're allowed to get hana, right? Because remember, you get hana by giving it or selling it to a guy, right? Either by selling it, obviously you're getting money back. There, that's my hana, right? I get $50 back because I sold it for $50. Or, but even if I give someone as a gift, I'm getting benefit. What's the benefit? I gave them a gift, right? They know I was nice to them. Now they feel like they owe me one, right? So that's also benefit, right? So that therefore that's considered to be mutter bahana. So we see by nevela, asr eat, but mutter bahana, but only because the pasuk told you so. So bishlo meir damer echad ger echad nachri beimachir beimasin aminit tzricha lemisha nevela bahana. So this works out according to, right, Rabbi Meir, who said, according to Meir, it was all one, right? The pasuk was not specific, and therefore everyone is considered to be whether you can give it to them or sell it to them. So bishlo Rabbi Meir damer echad ger echad nachri. Right? By the fact over here, in this case, by nevela, it had to go ahead and be mater bahana. So other isurim of the Torah, right, that are both aser be'achila bahana. Rabbi Yehuda, the Varn because the Kikhasan Hudasa. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, who holds that we that which is written, that is what specifically is mutter. Ha kol yisurim shebatorah menali yisurim bahana. How does he know other yisurim in the Torah are aser? In other words, by the fact over here that we had to go ahead and be matir, right? But we only matir specifically. It could be we only matir specifically. In other cases, it's always aser, right? But, and over here, we just had said, no, this way is mutter by giving as a gift, and this way is mutter by selling, right? But all other cases, it's still usher. According to our mayor, worked well because it's saying, okay, this case is mutter, sounds like other cases are usher. So it's a bit problematic with Rabbi Avo, right? Because according to Rabbi Avo, right, if it just says usher to eat, then it's usher to everything. So how do you understand it? Lafi Rabbi Huda, right? So he says, so Gemara answers, no, nafkle the kelev tishlachun oiso, right? We learn over there, right? It says over there, you should go ahead, and the pasuk says, right? It says over there by treifa. It says vanchikos shuli ubasar beso the treifa loy seichlu. I'm just reading to the pasuk on the side. Lekelev tishlachun oso, right? You give it to a dog. Now remember, when you give it to a dog, you get hana, right? Because you're feeding your animal, right? Otherwise, it would have had to go ahead and purchase dog food. But now I can go ahead and feed it. And now this is referring to a treifa, right? An animal which let's say had a hole somewhere in its lung or whatever, somewhere in its body. It's called a treifa. It's different than a nevela. So it says over there, the kelev tishlachun oso. Go ahead and you can go ahead and give it to a dog. So it says oso ato mashlich kelev viata mashlich kelev koisim shebetorah. So it sounds like, right? What's the source according to Rabbi Yehuda? It says no, only that, right? The nevela. Excuse me, the treifa, right? You can go ahead and give it to a dog, but if it's the other isurim shebatorah, you can't go ahead and give it to a dog. So that's the source, right? So since it says, right, lekelev tishlachun oso, right? It could just say lekelev tishlachun. Why I say oso? Only in this case of a treifa do we allow is it mutter bahana, but other cases of isra achila are also asr bahana. Rabbi Meir. So according to our mayor, so what does he use the word oso? So oso atamashlich lekelev, yatamashlich lekelev chulin shenishchudu be'azar. So it says no, this case of treifa, right? That you give to a kelev. But however, any chulin that was shechted in the azara, right? If you had chulin, and normally chulin is supposed to be shechted outside. So let's say someone goes ahead and shechs, right, chulin inside the azara. So that you cannot go ahead and get any. No, you can't even feed a dog. The idach. That's since that's not the raisa. Therefore, I argue and says no, that you actually could go ahead and feed that indeed to a dog. So Mesa Rabbi Yitzchak Nachka V'Harei Giran Asher. Okay, so let's talk about another case of something which is usher. Let's talk about the Giran Asher. Giran Asher, right? In the leg of the animal. So we say the Rachman Omar. The pasuk says, "Al Kain lo yechlu b'nei Yisrael sagid hanasha." The pasuk says, right? Therefore, don't go ahead and eat the gid hanasha. Right, part of the sin of there. Utanan shalech adam yerech lenachri the gid hanasha b'soicha mipnei shemekam nikar. A person is allowed to go ahead, right? Now, Bnei Yisrael is not allowed to go ahead. A Jew is not allowed to go ahead and eat it, right? So now, can I go ahead and give it to a goy, sell it to a goy? So it says over there, I can send it, the gid hanasha, to a guy, right? Because it's recognizable, right? It's recognizable. Now, in other words, that if someone sees me sell a meat to a guy, they say, "Oh, it must be okay to eat because I saw that came from Yoel," right? And then when they go back and see it, they'll be able to recognize that the gid hanasha is in there, right? Or whether it was removed or not. So therefore, since you can see that the gid is not there, is in there, right? We see that you're allowed to go ahead and get hana by selling it or giving it to a guy, right? We're not concerned that other Jews might come and eat it because it's recognizable, right? This meat is recognizable, right? So we see over there that it's mutter behana. So earlier we said anything that says asr to eat is also asr behana according to Re'avo, right? Unless the pasuk says it's mutter. So, right? So why in this case, according to Re'avo, would it be mutter? So Kshahutra Nevela, he the Chelba Vagida Hutra. That which we said is mutter by Nevela, right? The case of a carcass that was not shechted properly. Not only did it include, right, just Nevela, but also included Nevela, right, the fats with it, and the Gidim, they're also mutter behana. You can also go ahead and sell it to your Nachri or your Ger. So So this works according to this machlokes by Gid hanasha. We saw in Chulin a couple of years ago, right? We did Chulin, it's already that far back, about whether the gid hanasha is nice in time, whether there's flavor there, if there's flavor there, or if it's flavorless, right? So according to the opinion who holds it's nice in time, so then it's just like the meat, and then you can say it's the chalb of the gida is mutters along with it. Right? But according to the one who says it's not really considered to be meat, right? So then it's not really considered to be part of the nevela. It's mutter. So what are you going to say there? So who is the shita who holds that the gid hanasha is not nice in tam? That is Rabbi Shimon. That is the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. The time is on a brisa. Ha'oichel megid hanasha shel behema tmeya. Rabbi Yehuda mechayev shtaim. Rabbi Yehuda says you're chayev twice. Once for eating a behema tmeya, a non-kosher animal, and the second is for eating the gid hanasha. And Rabbi Shimon paiter. And Rabbi Shimon says you're pater. Why? Because the gid hanasha is not considered to be meat, right? You didn't eat a non-kosher animal because just like you ate the bone of a non-kosher animal, right? That's not food from a non-kosher animal, right? And so therefore, since it's not considered to be food, right? It's not considered to be eating a non-kosher animal, behemoth tmeya, and it's not considered to be eating the gid hanasha. And Rabbi Shimon hachinami daser b'hana. And nevertheless, right, he says over there, Asmanad the tiny gid hanasha mutter b'hana devi Rabbi Yehuda gid hanasha mutter b'hana and Rabbi Shimon iser. Right, and Rabbi Shimon says it's usher. So we see over there that Rabbi Shimon is the one who says, right, that nevertheless it's still considered to be usher, right? So therefore he argues with that whole case over there of going ahead and matzering it, because Rabbi Shimon is the opinion that holds. He says that it's usher, and therefore it's not considered to be part of nevela because it's not food, right? It's not food. There is no prohibition, right? Because it's not nois saint tam, and therefore since that pasuk of loyecha doesn't apply to it, right? It would still be aser b'hana. It's not. In other words, since it says loyecha would include, right, also the gid hanasha. So therefore, Rabbi Shimon would be just like Re'avo, who says not only aser to eat, but aser b'hana. You can't even get the any sort of pleasure from the gid hanasha. Now let's talk about another thing that is permissible to or forbidden to eat, and whether and it's permissible to go ahead and get hana, right? Remember, Re'avo's rule was anything that says you can't eat, you really can't get any hana unless the pasuk tells you, just like the case of Nevel. So guys, what about harei dam? What about blood? The Rachman Omar kol nefesh mikem lo yiseichel dam. you shouldn't go ahead and eat any blood. If you have, right, the blood of different carbonos that they go ahead and they mix, they go out to Nachal Kidron. So right, you can go ahead and you can sell it to different gardeners, right, for the zevel to help their fertilize their yards. Umualimbo, right, and there is meila with it, right. There is meila. There is still since the blood came from different carbonos, so therefore there still is meila, right. But we see that they're allowed to go ahead and sell it, right. How can they sell it, right? It seems like it was forbidden to eat. So if it's forbidden to eat, it should be forbidden for no. The Gemara says no. Since blood is compared to water, the pasuk says, right? You shouldn't go ahead and eat blood, right? Rather pour it like water. So just like water is mutar b'hana, so too blood is mutar b'hana. So yes, the pasuk, we would have thought that blood is usher. Not only is it usher to eat, but even usher to get hana. And therefore, if it's usher to hana, you could even sell it to gardeners to help fertilize their gardens. However, since the pasuk compares it to water, water is mutar b'hana, so too is blood. Well, let's say, there's certain types of water. What about the key when we do nisachamayim? We do nisachamayim on sukkahs, right? The water is poured onto the mizbeach, and it's considered to be holy water, right? And that water, right, is aser bahana. You can't use it for other things. So maybe it's the blood is just like that water can't get on us. Kamayim. When it says kamayim, rov mayim means majority of waters. Immediate rov mayim. See, it doesn't say rov mayim. Salam Ravashi kamayim hanishbachin v'loy kamayim hanisachin. Right? No, because it says water that's poured and not like water that is used for libations. So therefore, it's poured water, which is mutar b'hana. Maybe it's like poured water, right? Like when you pour water in front of avodah zarah. If the water is used for avodah zarah, it's aser b'hana. So hasanami nisach that's also that's not called mayim nishbachin. That's called mayim nisuchim. That's called nisach ikri. The chesiv yishtu nine nisicham. Right? It says don't go ahead and drink their wine, which was nisuchim, which was used for libations. Fine. So top of the page of Chav Beis Amud Beis. Ulechizkiya. Right. And according to Chizkiya, now remember Chizkiya. If you turn back by the two dots over there, right? Chizkiya was the first opinion. He says by chametz it says lo yeachel. Right, it says lo yeachel to teach you not only aser b'achila, also aser b'ana. But if it just said lo yeachel, right, then it would mean that it's mutar b'hana. Right, he argues with Rabbi Avo. So ulachizkiya, and according to Chizkiya, top of the page of Chav Beis and Beis, ulachizkiya my if that's the case, why is blood compared to water? Right, I don't need to tell you that blood is mutar b'hana. Right, because I know that because the pasuk just says don't eat blood. So if I don't eat it, I can still get hana because it didn't say lo yeachel done. Right, so since it's lo yeachel, so therefore I know it's mutar b'hana. So if that's the case, why is it compared to water? It says no. Look at Rabbi Barabba, like we saw earlier. How do I know? How do we know that blood of kudshim is ein machshir when it goes ahead and right he shechs an animal and then it gets wet? Right, the buster gets wet from the blood of the animal. That the blood is not machshir. We saw this multiple times during the sugya, but we saw the kachim sugya, the tumatara sugya. Shnamar, as the pasuk says, lo yisachlenu ala aretz yisrael kamayim. Do not go ahead and eat the blood. Right, pour it on the ground. So dam and nishbach kamayim machshir. Only blood that's poured out is machshir. However, shein and nishbach kamayim machshir. But blood that's not poured out, i.e., blood that's supposed to be poured in this beach, is not considered to be a good hechsher when it comes to tuma. Fine. So the Gemara says, okay, let's talk about another iser be'achila. V'harei aver min achai. What about aver min achai? Aver min achai, right, is a limb from a live, right, from a live animal. T'chsiv lo yisaychel hanefesh im habasar. You shouldn't go ahead and eat the nefesh im habasar. V'tanya, Rabbi Nassan Omer. How do we know a person should not go ahead and go walk up to a nazir and says, "Oh, here's a cup of wine," or go to a ben Noach, right, who's commanded not to eat aver min achai, and say, "Here's an aver min achai." Therefore, the pasuk says, right? It says you should not go ahead and put a stomach block in front of a blind person. You should not help a person who is forbidden to something do an isser, i.e., giving wine to a nazir or an aver minachai to a ben noach. But it sounds like you can't give a ben noach aver minachai. But I could go ahead and give aver minachai to a dog. It sounds like aver minachai is mutter bihana. So Gemara answers no. Shani aver minachai the education dump. Since aver minachai is compared to blood, and we just said earlier, blood is compared to water. That water is mutter bihana. So too, aver minachai is mutter just like blood is mutter. It says over there that the blood is a nefesh, and we had earlier nefesh basar. The nefesh over there is referring to aver minachai, is also called nefesh, and dam is called nefesh. According to Chizkiah, who doesn't need to go ahead and say it's aver minachai is mutter b'hana, because remember, according to Chizkiah, anything that's usher to eat, it says don't eat, is only usher to eat and not usher b'hana. So according to Chizkiah, why do I need to know aver minachai? Why is it compared to dam? So he'd say to you, dam hu izu aver minachai ma aver minachai usher af dam minachai usher. Just like aver minachai, right, is it's isser in it, right, is usher. So too the blood from a live person is considered to be usher, and it's the regular isser. In other words, maybe you'd say there's two different isser of blood. Maybe there's isser while the animal is dead, right? Or while it's alive, it's two different isurim. All right, so you say, no, just like aver minachai is aser, so to blood, minachai, dam minachai, is also aser. And it's the same isser before, right? The same isser as before over there, which is, we say, ve'ez is a dam, hakaza shanefesh yetziba, right? And what's that blood that we talked about earlier, that the isser of eating blood, which is kares, also applies. So that's even, there's 4 different steps, levels of blood. Even the blood of the dam hakaza, right? When you go ahead and bloodlet, that is when the nefesh comes out, right? If you that beginning blood, so even that blood is where the isser of dam applies. So let's look at another case. V'harei shor haniskal. What about one is forbidden to go ahead and eat shor haniskal, to eat an animal that was goring. The animal is supposed to be stoned and destroyed. So we say, the Torah says, don't eat his basar. All right, now remember, according to Yavo, it says, lo yechel means asr bahana, asr to eat. According to Chizkiah, asr to eat, mutter bahana. So let's see what's going on in this pasuk. Now, the Vashar Niskel, it says, lo yechel is a basar. You should go ahead and stone it. I don't know what's nevela. So, right, once you stone an animal, right, the animal dies by stoning, right? So I didn't shecht it, right? If you don't shecht an animal, you can't eat it, right? So it's nevela. All right, worst case scenario, right? So why does that tell me any dashi nevela? Well, nevela asr be'achila, and we know that you can't go ahead and eat nevela. So ma'atam aleim lo yechel. So why does it say lo yechel? Don't eat the shor niskal. Of course not, right? It died by stoning, right? It didn't die by shchita, it died by stoning. So of course I can't eat it. Why does it tell me that? To teach you that even if they gave the Gemar din, they said, okay, this animal is chai for goring and killed somebody, we have to kill the animal. And the animal escapes, and some guy grabs it, and he says, oh, you're going to go to waste, I'm going to shecht you and sell your meat, right? So he shechts the animal, he didn't stone it. Even in such a case, that is usher because he had his Gemar din of it should have been stoned. So Eli el be'achila. I only know that it's go ahead usher to eat it. How do I know it's usher bahana? Tamalemar ubal hashor naki. It says over there, the owner of the shore will be naki. So it knows my mashma. What's the mashma of this? Right? It's like somebody says, right? He cleaned them out, right? He cleaned them out for his nechasim. So too, this animal is like cleaned them out. In other words, he gets nothing back from this animal. Not only is aser b'achila, but even if he goes ahead and shechs it, it's even aser b'hana. Now, so what's the kasha? So Tam the kasha ubal hashor naki. The only reason is because it says the bal hashor, the guy is free from it. In other words, he can't get any hana. Di malayachel iser achila mashma isarna le mashma. But just from the words lo yeachel, right? That it would sound like it's only now we know it's aser bahana. But if it only said lo yeachel, it would sound like, right, oh, there's only Isser Achila and not an Isser of Hana. So it's a Kasha. It's Kasha actually on both. Rabbi Avo, because he says, anytime it says Lo Yechel, it means that you can't get any Hana, right? Unless it tells you it's Motor Hana. So according to him, it's a Kasha, because Lo Yechel, why did he need Baal Shor Naki? And then according to Chizkiah, because it doesn't say Lo Yechel, it says Lo Yeachel. Lo Yechel is like the super Lashon, where it tells you not only is Asr Achila, but also Asr Bahana. So it's a kasha in both of them. So why does it say that? So Gemara says, no, Li'elam Lo Yechel Isr Achila V'Isr Hana Mashra. Really, Lo Yechel is Asr Isr Achila V'Isr Hana. So why do you need the pasuk of L'Bal Asher Naki? L'Bal Asher Naki L'Hana So Aru Dasa. It doesn't come to the meat. Even the hide is Asr Bahana. The Yitzrich. And I need to learn that. Why? You can't go ahead and eat its flesh. Then that which is from its meat. So the meat is aser be'achila, and the meat is aser b'hana. However, but the arolo, but its hide maybe is mutter. Kamash malon, that even the hide is part of the meat. You know, maybe that which we normally say that it's aser, whether it's mutter or aser b'hana, is referring to the meat that you can't eat it. So. But the hide is not the part that the isra of eating is on. Of course, you don't need hide because it's not really food, right? The basar is low, you can't eat it, and then you can't hana. But maybe the hide is considered to be something else, and therefore maybe that's something else I can get hana. So kamash malon balashor naki is clean from that also. Tonight, and there's other tanayim who actually use this pasuk over there when they the case in Baba Kama, when they discuss this pasuk of Shor Shanoga. So when then an animal is goring, so we say the user over there l'chatzi kaifer u'dmei v'lados, right? They use over there as a drasha for chatzi kaifer. A person pays basically half. He has to pay kaifer. The person kills somebody, so not only pays damages, you pay half the damages, but maybe you also pay half to kill somebody, pay half his life. So you pay. There is no such thing as chatzi kaifer. You pay the full life with dmei vlados, or you pay you pay for the value of which you don't, right? You don't pay the value of the fetus of if you gored an animal that was pregnant. So hanas oira minali. So if you use the drush of balashar naki for other drushes, like there is no chatzi kaifer and there is no vladi vlados, so if you use the puzzle for something else, how do we know over here in the case of the hides that the hides are also aser b'hana? So our answer is nafkalu may the es basara. Since it says there is es basara, es hatafa basara. Since it says es habasara, right? Es doesn't really have a definition. So the darshan the word es to include that which is secondary to the meat, i.e., which is the hide. I v'idach, and according to that opinion, I es basara. So it sounds like making darshan the word as balashor naki darshan twice. So it says no. Es like darish, he doesn't darshan esim. Kedetani l'na brayso Shimon hamsoni. Ramile, and some say it was Nehemiah hamsoni. Hayad darish class in Shabbat Torah. He was darshing every time he said the word es in the Torah because es doesn't really have a definition, right? So he darshan every time he said the word es, it included something else. Kevan shegila es Hashem elokecha tira pirish. However, once he came to the pasuk of es Hashem elokecha tira, should have just said Hashem elokecha tira, fear your God. But it said S, right? It sounded like to include something else or someone else included with God, right? There is no any else with God. So obviously, you can't darshan this S. And therefore, he said, Piresh. So he says, therefore, we can't darshan Esim anymore. So Amrlo Tamidav. Rebbe Kol Azim Shadarshta Mate, right? But what are all the other Esim? You just, you darshaned 50 others Esim to include this and to include that. And now you get to this pasuk and say it doesn't include anything. So the others don't include anything. So what do we do with the other drushes? So Summerland, he said then, just like I got schar for darshaning in those, so too I get schar for withdrawing my ability to darshanes. Ad Shabbat Rabbi Kiva, the Darash, and Rabbi Kiva came and says, now Es Hashem Elokecha Tira, the rabbis Tamid Chachamim. You know that S includes not only you have to fear God, you also have to fear Tamid Chachamim. And therefore, that was the S that he darshan, which was not come up from Nehemiah, Hamsoni, or Shimon Hamsoni. And therefore, so we see that the other opinion may be held that you don't darshan Essen, right? Only Rabbi Kiva came along to darshan Essen, but the other one, maybe you didn't darshan Essen, therefore the other didn't darshan Es Besaro, and therefore he used the pasuk of Balashar Naki to teach you that the hide is Aser Behana, and he didn't learn that from S. Fine. Let's look at another case of Isser eating. Let's look at Orla. Bahare Orla, right? The first couple years of the first 3 years of a tree when it starts to grow its fruit. That is called orla. So orla, the Torah says, arelim lo yeichel. You should not go ahead and eat the orla fruit. V'tanya arelim lo yeichel. It says lo yeichel, right? The arelim you should not achil. Eli achila minayin shelo yehana mimeno. I only know you can't go ahead and eat it. It says they should not be eaten. How do we know that Isser hana? You shouldn't use it not for the dyes of it, and not to go ahead and use its oil to light candles. It says its orlas will be treated like orla, and you should not go ahead and eat them. So the rabbi says kulam to go ahead and teach you that everything, not only to eat them, but also any isser hana. So the kasav rachman only because it says that there was asur. Three different lashonim of latem or lasai and arelim. Halav hachi havamina. I would have thought isra achila mashma, isra hana lo mashma. I would have thought only isra achila, not isra hana. So that's a kasha. So it says li'elam lo yechel mashma bein isra achila bein isra hana. Really, it's not a kasha on Chizkiah or a kasha on Revo. And therefore, that which is said lo yechel comes to teach you not only can you not eat it, but you also cannot derive any benefit from it. The Shani Hasim, but over there is different. The Chasiv Lachem. There's another pasuk over there. It says the word Lachem, right? The pasuk over there says it says where does it say Lachem? 1 second, right? It says Yeh Lachem, right? These are Allah Yeh Lachem will be to you, right? Sounds like when the Torah says it's yours, it sounds like maybe I can get hana, right? The Chasiv Lachem v'yitzrich. And therefore maybe you own it, and therefore I can get hana. Kamash Milan. Therefore it says Allah to teach you that you can't get hana. So the Allah hashta the kasev hinach krai lachem lamli. If that's the case, if Allah tells you that lachem it's not yours, so what is the word lachem coming to tell you? So our answer is look at Tanya. As you learn in the Brayta, it says over there lachem l'rabbi says natui l'rabbi. Right? It goes over there. It says the word lachem to teach you that is yours, that which is basically planted for the public. And Rabbi Yehuda Imir lohaitzi yes into the rabbi. It says no to exclude it. Now we'll just explain real quick. So it says my time at the Tanakama. What's the reason the Tanakama says that you can go ahead, if it was planted for the rabbim, you can go ahead and use it. The chesiv natazim. Right? It says when you plant it, the yachid mash is only when a yachid plants it, then it's aser. However, the rabbim loy mash, but it's planted for the rabbim, then it's not mash. Because Rachman lachem lahavi yes and atui the rabbim. So it said that which is planted for the public, right, is also a part of, to include it, that also part of the Yisr. And Rabbi Yehuda says the opposite. When it says that you plant, it sounds like you plant for any reason, whether it's a private purpose or you plant it for the rabbim. And therefore it says you plant, which is a ribui, to include that in the Yisr. And then it says lachem. It says yours also. That's a ribui acharmi ribui vein ribui achar ribui elamite. And therefore, something which is a ribui, after a ribui actually minimizes, right? Two negatives is a positive, so two ribuis minimizes, and therefore it's something which is planted for the rabbim, according to Rabbi Yehuda, does not have an orla restriction. That only applies to something which is planted for the yachid. And we will stop over here before we go on to the next case of Isser Achila. Shkoyach, everybody. Everybody have a wonderful day.